Well, it's Saturday. Or is it Sunday? Or is it my birthday? Or is it? I guess it's Sunday. So this is Sunday school. Anyway, whatever it is, it's the second installment of the adventures of Lola Daydream up the Tree of Life and through her initiations. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, obviously you didn't see yesterday's little installment of Conks on Pox by Aleister Crowley, and it's a section of Conks on Pox called The Wake World, which is Crowley's Alice in Wonderland of initiation a la Golden Dawn, and her climb up the Tree of Life, and her relationship with her fairy prince, which obviously is her holy guardian angel. But anyway, too much explanation isn't necessary. I want you just to sort of enjoy the fairy tale. Be that as it may, yesterday I mentioned the fact that I would just love to see everybody's sort of artist's conception of Lola, especially at different levels of her initiation, and at different Sephiroth and different paths on the tree. It just is so rich with dramatic effect and elements of drama with her holy guardian angel at every step, and at every step that he kisses her to awaken her to the next higher level of her initiatory journey. But anyway, we just started yesterday, and we got as far as him taking her to his house, and his house is really the Tree of Life, okay? And there's a snake surrounding the Tree of Life, and it's eating its own tail, and she's afraid, but the fairy prince tells her not to be afraid. And they enter into the house, and that's where we left it yesterday. And that's the house that they're entering into right now, number 10. And they will, step by step, take the paths up the tree to the various different Sephira levels of awakening. Now, I try to show all of that taking place in my, let's see here, Tarot of Ceremonial Magic book, where I would show Layla taking the path from 10 to 9 like that. And that path corresponds to the universe card. And so the imagery that she's going to probably see in that path are the 4 cherubic angels and things like that. And the next step would be, believe it or not, that path and that card. So I hope I haven't confused you too much. Let's just read on. Here's where we left off. My fairy prince said, "Don't be such a silly." He kissed me, and we got off the horse, and he took me to the door of the house, and we went in, and it was frightfully dark in that passage. Now I have to share with you the marginal note for babes and sucklings. Ceremonium 0 equals 0. He's trying to tell us, he's telling you what goes on in a Golden Dawn 0 equals 0 initiation ceremony. But we got off the horse and he took me to the door of the house and we went in. It was frightfully dark in the passage and I felt tied, so I couldn't move, so I promised myself to love him always, and he kissed me. It was dreadfully dark though, but he said not to be afraid, silly, and it's getting lighter. Now keep straight forward, darling. And then he kissed me again and said, welcome to my palace. I will tell you all about how it was built, because it is the most beautiful palace that ever was. On the sunset side were all the baths and bedrooms. Excuse me, on the sunset side were all the baths, and the bedrooms were in front of us as we were. And the baths were all of pale olive-colored marble, and the bedrooms had a lemon-colored everything. And there were the kitchens on the sunrise side, and they were russet like dead leaves in the autumn in one's dreams. The place we had come through was perfectly black everything, and only used for offices and such things. Now, if you're familiar with a colored version of the Tree of Life, Malkuth, number 10, is not colored just one color. There's like an X, and each quarter of the circle is colored black at the bottom, and then russet, and then citron, and then olive colors. And if you are familiar with the Golden Dawn panticle, the magician's panticle, it's colored in it's a disc colored in the same way. And if you're familiar with the Hermetic Rose cross, the lower arm of that cross is also broken into those same 4 colors. The colors of the first house that Layla steps into. Now, if you're unfamiliar with those images, just scroll down my Facebook page one to yesterday when I posted all 3 of these color images. Don't be such a silly. Just go to Lon's Facebook page. Okay. And of course, the very bottom one is black. Okay. There were the most horrid things everywhere about, black beetles and cockroaches and goodness knows what. But they can't hurt when the fairy prince is there. And the side note says, Qlifoth, the shells. I think a little girl would be eaten, though, if she went in there alone. Then he said, come on, this is only the servants' hall. Nearly everybody stays there all their lives. And I said, kiss me. So he said, every step you take is only possible when you say that. We came into a dreadful dark passage again, so narrow and low that it was like a dirty old hole, and so vast that everything in the whole world was contained in it. And that's that path I was telling you about. We're going, yeah. The path of Tav, right there. That's Saturn. That's the universe card. Tav, that joins 10 to 9. the servants' hall, crawling through the dark tunnel. Okay, you get the picture. And now I got to find my place. We saw all the strange dreams and awful shapes of fear, and I really don't know how we ever got through, except that the prince called for some splendid, strong creatures to guard us. There was an eagle that flew. Now remember, the cherubic emblems of the fixed signs, or the fixed signs of the zodiac are in the corners of the universe card. We saw, and called some splendid creatures to guard us. There was an eagle that flew and beat his wings and tore and bit at everything that came near. And there was a lion that roared terribly, and his breath was a flame and burnt up the things that were there, so that there was a great cloud. And rain fell gently and purely, so that he really did the things good by fighting them. And there was a bull that tossed them on his horns, that they changed into butterflies. And there was a man who kept telling everybody to be quiet and not to make noise. An Aquarian. Oh, those Aquarians. So we came at last to the next house in the palace, which was a great dome of violet. Now this is the foundation. Okay, number 9 on the tree of life. And its color is violet. It was a great dome of violet, and in the center the moon shone. It's the sphere of the moon is number 9, the Yesod. She was a full moon, and yet she looked like a woman, quite young. I hope that's not incoming. Her hair was silver and finer than spiders' webs, and rayed about her like one can't say what. It was all too beautiful. In the middle of the hall was a black stone pillar, from the top of which sprang a fountain of pearls, and as they fell upon the floor, they changed the dark marble to the color of blood. And it was like a green universe full of flowers, and little children playing among them. So I said, "Shall we be married in this house?" And he said, "No, this is only the house where the business is carried on. All the palace rests on this house." Number 9 is called the foundation. "But you were called Lola because you are key of delights. Many people stay here all their lives, though." And I made him kiss me, and we went on to another passage which opened out of the servants' hall. Now, that passage, I'll just use this little card. That passage actually is the one that goes from 10 to 8. Okay, we're going backwards through the Hebrew alphabet. Now, that might seem weird that to get to from 9 to 8, we would start by taking the path that leads from 10 to 8. But that's not the way it works. Okay, imagine that the tree of life is one of those novelty flavor straws that you used to get. This is an elaborate flavor straw, and at the top is where you suck. And down there is the root beer float. And as you suck everything up with you. So in order to move in consciousness from 9 to 8, you have to have a path that draws the Tav up with it, the universe, and so 9 drags 10 up the flavor straw by that path. But 8 has to draw 10 up along with it, along with 9. So 10 gets sucked up into 9, and the 10 that 9 holds gets sucked up to 8 through the sheen one. This is not a linear gravity type thing. Things happen simultaneously. The important thing to remember is that everything comes up with you. So 10 has to get drug up somehow to 8, and 10 will have to somehow get drug up through to 7 eventually. And they have their own paths that represent those same conduits of intelligence. In other words, the old adage that you can't take it with you is wrong. You must take it with you. Now, where was I? I digress. Okay. Okay, another passage opened out of the servants' hall. And the side note says, via Shin, in case you didn't believe Lon. The passage was all fire and flame and full of coffins. There was an angel blowing ever so hard on a trumpet, and people getting up out of the coffins. My fairy prince said most people never wake up for anything less. So we went. At the same time it was. You see, in dreams, people can only be in one place at one time. That's the best of being awake. So we went through another passage, which was lighted by the sun. And that's the Resh one. Right there, the Resh that leads from 9 to 8. We're talking about how the flavor straw gets all sucked up into 8 now. Let's see. Which was lighted by the sun. Yet there were fairies dancing in a great ring, just as if it was night. And there were 2 children playing by the wall, and my fairy prince and I played as we went, and he said, the difference is that we are going through. Most people play without a purpose. If you are traveling, it's all right. The play makes the journey seem short. Then we came into the 3rd or 8th. Let's see, and here he explains that. Then we came into the 3rd or 8th. It depends on which way you count them, because there are 10. Oh my God, Constance is over there feeding a squirrel. He's feeding out of her hand. Oh, I wish I could show you. Bring Petey over here and show us.
He's not eating out of my hand.
Hi, Petey.
He's a foot away, but I'm not going
Hi, Petey. Constance won't let me exploit you. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. That was.
You have to pay her scale.
What is squirrel scale?
A pound of walnuts.
A pound of walnuts. Okay. Where was I?
She's getting sunflower seeds now because I'm not paying her anything.
Then we came into the third or eighth house. That was so splendid you can't imagine. In the first place, it was bright, bright, bright orange color, and then it had flashes of light going all over it, so fast we couldn't see them, and there was the sound of the sea, and one could look through into the deep, and there was an ocean raging beneath one's feet, strong dolphins riding on it, crying, "Holy, holy, holy," in such ecstasy you can't think, and rolling and playing for sheer joy. It was all lighted by a teeny weeny shy little planet, sparkling and silvery, and now and then a wave of fiery chariots, filled with eager spearmen, blazed through the sky, and my fairy prince says, "Isn't it all fine?" Now this is the sphere of Mercury, as if you haven't guessed. But I knew he really didn't mean it. So I said, "Kiss me." And he kissed me, and we went on. He said, "Good little girl of mine, there's many a one that stays there all his life." Oh, I forgot to say that the whole place was just one mass of books, and people reading them until they were so silly they didn't know what they were doing. And there were cheats and doctors and thieves, and I was very, very glad to go away. Mercury rules lawyers and thieves and cheats. Okay. Now, there's the seventh house. That's next. And she says there are 3 ways to get to the seventh house. Okay. We see one there going directly from 8, and we see one there going directly from 9, and 10 gets itself sucked up through Kuf to that one. So there they are, right there. There are 3 ways to get to the seventh house. And the first was such a funny way, and that's the funny way is Kuf from 10, and Kuf is the moon card in the tarot, the spooky moon card. Not the sphere of the moon, which is 9, the Sephira, but the moon card, the path. We walked through a pool, each on the arm of a great big beetle, and we found ourselves on a narrow, winding path. There were nasty jackals about. They made such a noise, and at the end I could see 2 towers. Then there was the queerest moon you ever saw, only half-quarter full. The shadows fell so strangely, one could see the most mysterious shapes, like great bats with women's faces and blood dripping from their mouths, and creatures, partly wolves and partly men, everything changing one into the other. And we saw shadows, like old, ugly women creeping about on sticks, and all of a sudden they would flip up into the air shrieking the funniest kind of songs, and then suddenly one would come down flop, and you saw that she was really quite young and ever so lovely, and she would have nothing on. and as you looked at her, she would crumble away like a biscuit. There was another passage which was really too secret for anything at all. Okay, and that one is going to be Oyen, right there. Oyen, the devil. Okay. All I shall tell you is this. There was the most beautiful goddess that ever was. She was washing herself in a river of dew. Oh, excuse me. In this way, it's not Oyen yet. It's the star card. This is back when Sadi was the star. Crowley wrote this one, and Sadi was not the star. That's not Oyen. Oyen will come right there. Okay. Mr. Lon makes oversights too. So, the most beautiful goddess that ever was, and she was washing herself in a river of dew. If you ask her what she was doing, she said, "I'm making thunderbolts." It was only starlight, and yet one could see quite clearly. So don't think I'm making a mistake. The third path is the most terrible passage. And the third path that he's talking about goes from 8 to 7, and it's the path of Pe, Mars, the blasted tower. Actually, the real title just is the House of God, then, or the destruction of the House of God. Okay. The third path is the most terrible passage. It's all a great war, and there's earthquakes and chariots of fire and all the castles breaking to pieces. I was glad when we came to the Green Palace. Okay, that Green Palace is number 7, Netzach, the sphere of Venus. It was all built out of malachite and emerald, and there was the loveliest, gentlest living, and I was married to my fairy prince there, and we had the most delicious honeymoon. And I had a beautiful baby. And then I remembered myself, but only just in time, and he said, "Kiss me." And then he kissed me and said, "My goodness, that was a near thing that time. My little girl nearly went to sleep." Most people who reach the 7th house stay there all their lives, I can tell you. Those of you who are opera fans will recognize this 7th house that the fairy prince says most people stay there all their lives as being Venusberg, where the hero Tannhäuser has been hanging out for an unspecified period of time as the opera begins. And the goddess Venus, or the goddess of Venusberg, doesn't want him to ever go. And she exudes a great deal of pressure on him to stay there with her. And in a sense, she doesn't want him to go on to the 6th house. It did seem a shame to go on. There was such a flashing green star to light it, and the air was filled with amber-colored flames like kisses. And we could see through the floor. And there were terrible lions like furnaces for fury, and they roared, "Holy, holy, holy," and leaped and danced for joy. And when I saw myself in the mirrors, the dome was one mass of beautiful green mirrors. I saw how serious I looked, and that I had to go on. I hoped the fairy prince would look serious too, because it is most dreadful business going beyond the seventh house. But he only looked the same as ever. But oh, how I kissed him, how I clung to him. Oh, I think I should never have had the courage to go up those dreadful passages, especially knowing what was at the end of them. And now I'm only a little girl, and I'm ever so tired of writing. But I will tell you all about it. I'll tell you about the rest another time. And that ends part 1. The external college. Okay. I'm sorry I rambled on with all those digressions and kept us running so late here for Sunday school. But we'll pick it up there tomorrow. I think I will be in an extremely hot parking lot tomorrow. So, but I'll be here if my car makes it to that parking lot. Anyway, it was 108 in our backyard, probably closer to 109. And it'll be the same thing today. Okay, we look at the Sacramento forecast and it says, oh, it's only going to be 105. But our backyard must be in a different area of the neighborhood that boosts us up a couple more degrees. Anyway, oh, I hope you like my hat, my chicken Kabbalah hat here, which was a birthday gift from our dear, dear friends Steve and Judy Abbott up in Oregon, who sent it. We miss you, Steve and Judy, so much. Steve, we wish you were still living in our backyard and that we were all in Costa Mesa again. But anyway, until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.